What's up, man? You don't know, my name is Terry. You tuning in to the Moss Life. I don't know, that just felt kind of weird to say, but man, this thing called life, bro, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. I don't even know where to start. Um, Dang, bro, it's been like a year. It's been close to a year. It'll probably be like a year next month, but I didn't want to go that far. But I just keep looking over. I'm sorry, I keep looking over here for some reason. But anyway, um, as you can tell, I don't know if y'all knew, but yeah, this is a little bit change of scenery right here because I moved out of my parents' house, so obviously that's a big accomplishment, I guess you know what I'm saying. And people probably say, "Oh, you're 25. What are you doing? You're still living with your parents?" Yes, I was, but I was doing some stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing for a long time, and you know, I'll just say it caught up to me. It is what it is. Gotta live with the decisions I made. So now I'm here. It's not where I want. It's not what I wanted. You know, at this point, but you know, it is what it is. You gotta live with the decisions you make and do the best you can. So I've been here since November. It's an apartment, so obviously not a house. But that is obviously the goal. I want to get a house, a bunch of land, stuff like that. But we gotta start somewhere. You know what I'm saying? We gotta start somewhere. I say as far as adjusting to it, it's pretty. I don't live with anybody. I live by myself. Pay all the bills, which is not a problem. But I'll just say just getting used to not seeing my parents every day, not hearing the dog barking, and just my mom coming in the room messing with me randomly. My stepdad, having random talks with me and stuff like that. And I ain't trying to get like emotional or nothing, but it's just like you just start, you just start like just really just getting into your own groove. Like, I work late, so when I get home, all my neighbors and stuff is sleeping. So I mean, I still make a lot of noise, but they don't really complain. So it's not like I'm trying to be a ass or nothing, but excuse my English, but it's just yeah. I've been here since November, so well, I signed the lease in November, but I didn't move in officially until probably like mid December, January, somewhere like that. Because I just had to get all my stuff moved, had to get a bed, I had to get a lot of stuff, and there's still a lot of stuff I don't have that I need to get. So, but that's just part of growing and progressing and reaching that point of just being the house being complete. I still gotta hang up. Hopefully next it probably ain't gonna be next episode, but pretty soon it's gonna be like a bunch of pictures and stuff, on the wall, so it ain't like looking dry, you know. But I mean, I pretty much got everything I need: couch, bed, kitchen stuff, bathroom stuff. Still some other stuff I need to get, like for the dining room, living room, stuff like that. But bedroom, a few other things I need to get for the bedroom. But it's definitely been, it's definitely not for the weak. I would say I was definitely nervous because I was like, man, I don't know how this shit's gonna go. But at the same time, it was like, man, this is a new chapter in my life, so I just gotta embrace it. I just gotta walk into it. I can't be just like, oh, I don't think it's gonna work out. It's like, nah, man, just go for it, man. If it don't work out, my parents told me like you can always come back home. But I'm just like, I'm gonna make this work. But I mean, shout out to them. They was a big, help. Helping me get some stuff, and it's just been this is a part of my life where it's like I'm really starting to find myself and like figure out like what I want to do, and it's like people say, well, you're 25, you should already know. Well, I mean everybody's different, so I mean, I say this all the time. Everybody's different, so I can't speak on your experience. I can't speak on X, Y, and Z. This person's experience, that person's experience. So somebody else at 25 might have a house, kids, wife, all that stuff by now, but I don't. And it's not for lack of trying, or just that I could say it's not for lack of trying, because there's a lot of stuff I should have by 25, but that I don't, and that's my fault. I'm just being honest, bro. That's what you call being accountable. It's my fault. It's a lot of situations I put myself in that I shouldn't have, that I knew I shouldn't have, but I thought the grass would be greener, so I'd be like, oh, this, things gonna get better. No, or it's gonna work out this way. No, so yeah, it's just a point where I'm just trying to figure it out, and just go from there. My family, they support me and stuff like that, but they also like, hey man, it's about time for you to, get figure yourself out. You got to figure out life. So, can't hold my hand. You know what I'm saying? I got to figure it out for myself. So, you know, as far as, I'm just trying to think of like, well, obviously I've been adjusting, but also adjusting to like, just like living on my own. I'm not one of those people that like to, and if you know me, I'm not one of those people that like to have like a lot. I don't like being around a lot of people. So living by myself is great because not only do I make the rules, but it's also I control everything. So I control who comes here. I control who doesn't come here. I control when I leave. I control when I get back home. I control if I want to stay home or if I want to be somewhere else. Like I control, I don't have to be home at a certain time. I control, like I'm in control. Like that's what it is. And it sucks because I'm renting, so I'm really not in control. Because if I don't pay rent 1 month, they gonna evict me. But it's certain parts that you can control. So like obviously you can control paying your rent, obviously, but that's not the goal. The goal is to own property, own land, own real estate, stuff like that. But like I said, we gotta start somewhere. And I think that's a big. I know I said when I first started the podcast I wouldn't really speak on it. I'm not gonna speak on it too much because it's not really a lot that I'm gonna say about it. But as far as dating, that's another big thing. Like I don't really. I could probably count on one hand how many chicks I've been involved with that have been here. So that's another good thing. And as far as if you're dating and shit, like if you go to her house, like let's say y'all get into an argument or something happens, or you just get mad, or you just want to leave, and it's like, oh, I'm going home, like so I'm gonna go where it's peaceful. So I'll say it has advantages with that too. But as far as just life, living on your own is just I don't know. It's just a lot because you get a lot of mixed signals even when you don't live on your own. Just in general, from well, not just dating, but like just going through life. It's just a lot of uncertainty. Like you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know X, Y, and Z. Figuring out what I'm gonna eat every night is becoming one of the hardest things. Cause I'm like, damn, what the fuck I mean? Damn, I gotta take that. So I've been, I've been cooking a lot more since I've been on my own. Um, which is good. I mean, it's good that I already knew how to cook. So I haven't cooked a lot of crazy stuff. Like I've cooked chicken, made a lot of breakfast stuff like eggs, bacon, sausage, potatoes. What else have I made? Made chicken, steak, burgers. Different stuff like little small stuff. I haven't really got to the big stuff yet. Like like the full meals. Well, I can't say full meals, but like spaghetti, I made that once. Um, I had up, of course. I'm trying to figure out what else I made other than that. That was like really a big I haven't really made anything. Oh, well, I've made fried rice. Never mind. Made fried rice. So I know how to make fried rice. Chicken and shrimp fried rice. Yeah. So, but it is definitely an experience. It does get lonely because I obviously live by myself, and um, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say it's depressing, but you just get times where you just be like, damn, like I don't know. But it also it makes you appreciate it because you know what I'm saying. This is what you did. You know what I'm saying. You grinded for this. You know what I'm saying. This shit took a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Just me, just going from the process of looking for an apartment, touring, signing lease, moving all my stuff in. Like like you look back on it, you're like, well, you know what I'm saying. You put the work in. You know you you made this accomplishment. So I mean, it does. I mean, it can get lonely, doesn't it? But at the same time, you also look at it like, shit. This is. I mean, I did it. So, and it's only up from here. Like when I move out of here, I'm gonna have a better idea of okay, what am I looking for? Where do I want to go? Where I want to stay at? And hopefully, fingers crossed. I'm hoping and praying, and hopefully, I can be on a up and narrow and on a good path to where I can say, all right, I'm leaving here and I'm moving into a house. So that's the goal. That's what I want to do, and hopefully buy a house. I don't want to rent a house. So that's the goal. If I have to resign a lease here, it is what it is. But if I, you know, can move into a house and be not necessarily be comfortable, but be in a position where I know I'm gonna be good, then because a house is way more than an apartment as far as like maintenance, like upkeep, all that stuff. So I just want to be in a position where I'm gonna be able to handle it. But I'm gonna transition into another topic. We gonna start on. I'm not starting on, but get into like the gym, cause I know it's been a year, so I'm not even gonna get into the gym yet. But I'm gonna just go back. I'm gonna just transition back into pretty much what's happened. So last time, a lot has happened. Damn, oh man. Okay, so last time, I'm gonna just look at my phone real quick. I'm sorry, just to see like when I put out the last episode. So the last episode I put out on here, I do apologize. It was it was in July. Okay, it says 10 months ago, so that was so it's June right now. So that was April. No, it was August. Stupid, but dang, last August. That sounds about right. That does sound about right. But lots happened since then. I don't know if I said it on the last one because I genuinely cannot remember. But I did lose my job. I was working at a call center. I got fired. It's pretty bummy, but it is what it is. A lot of politics. Not necessarily a lot of politics, but it was a lot that went into it. I didn't like it. I didn't deserve it, but you know, they made their decision, and just gotta live with it and move on. Um, that day was just not a good day because I was the day before I played in the men's league, and I thought I had lost my this gold chain, 14 karat gold chain that my mom bought me for Christmas like 3 years ago. Might have been 2 years. No, it was like 3 years ago. And I thought I lost it because I put it in my backpack. I couldn't find it. And didn't wear it to work because I couldn't find it. And I was like, bro, I gotta find this chain, bro. Like my mom gave me this chain. like Red what was his name off Friday? Red. Grandmama gave me this chain. Like it was like that same kind of like I'm like, bro, like I need this chain. So go to work, get fired, having a bad day. Then my mom texts me, or she texted or called me. I'm not sure. She's like, "Yeah, I found your chain. It was in your backpack." I was like, "Oh, thank you, God." I was like, "Oh yeah, I got fired." so yeah, that happened. Then I'm on the trajectory of looking for another job. Can't really find one. I'm struggling. I'm just like, I didn't want to get on unemployment because I'm like, I should find a job pretty quickly. But got on unemployment, or tried to get on unemployment. I'll tell you about that in just a second. So I was looking for another job, couldn't find it. So my stepdad was like, man, just get on, just try to, get some unemployment. I'm like, all right. So I go on their website, I start the process. They tell me how it's going to go. All right, cool. So still looking for a job. Can't find anything. I'm doing interviews. Did an in-person interview at ADT. They're weird, but didn't get the job there. So I was like, still, still searching. I put in applications with the city. I put in applications with different call centers, different places, anything you can think of, basically. Amazon, whatever. I did an application for it because I'm like, man, I'm just trying to get some money. So it got to a point where I was like, man, let me just see what this unemployment is talking about while I'm still actively trying to, apply for jobs. And I didn't know this because I'd never been on unemployment before because I never had a job. I never went more than a month without between jobs. Like I've always, ever since I started working, I've always had a job. Like that's one thing about me. Like I've never went an extended amount of time without a job. Like if I've gone a certain amount of time without a job, I planned it out. Like I'm not okay. So I'm gonna take vacation this amount of time. Then I'm putting my like I'm gonna I was strategic about it. But this particular time I got fired. This was the first job I ever got fired from. So it was like I've been working since I was 16. So like I'm like wait. So you gonna you gonna fire me? So at this time I'm 24. So 8 years, bro. I'm working for 8 years, consistently having jobs, bro. Like just working, and so like this is the first job I get fired from. So I'm uh, like I don't know what to do. So try to get unemployment. So they have a system where you have to put in a request every week or application every week, so you can get like back, so they can trace back to when you got fired, and they have to see if it's reasonable, if it was unreasonable why you got fired, and then all that stuff. So I got approved, but what I didn't know was that you have to once you apply for unemployment, you have to keep doing applications every week, every single week. So I thought you had to wait until you got approved to do the applications. They told me that you have to do the applications while it was still being processed. So I'm like, what if I don't get approved? But I was like, I'm thinking, okay, so y'all gonna backdate it when I get approved, right? Wrong. So I got approved, and they were like, oh, so you haven't been doing claims. Well, you can start doing the application to claims, and we can pay you starting when you did the new claims, but we can't back pay you for the weeks that you didn't file the claims. So this was probably like a month and a half, and they were gonna pay me pretty good. I can't remember how much they was gonna pay me, but it was pretty good money. It was gonna be enough for me to pay all my bills, be able to save some money, help the apartment. But they were like, nah, we can't, help you get the back date. And then I told them I was in school, and then they told me I had to fill out some paperwork for school. And then by that time, I had already found a job, so I was kind of pissed off because like school has no impact on my employment because I've always paid out of pocket for school. So um, that situation happened. I was really pissed off because I went through all this, like y'all don't see what's going on behind the scenes, so it's just like y'all telling me I gotta do this and then this, and I gotta fill out more paperwork, and it's like, all right, I'm just not even, so whatever. So I end up back at Walmart where I used to work back in 20, right after high school. It was like 2018. I worked there from like 2018 to 2019. I worked there for like a year and a half, and then I left like right like a month or two before COVID like really got serious, and then I started working at call centers. But I ended up back at Walmart. Different job, way different job. If you've been to Walmart, you probably seen me. Probably haven't. I don't know. But I'm not gonna tell y'all what I do because that's real federal. But yeah, ended up back at Walmart. My uncle, he just was like, man, they hiring. I can see if I can get you in. I was like, all right, that's cool. So the hiring manager brought me in for an interview. I didn't even do application. She's like, have you done application? I said no. She's like, okay, well, you're gonna have to do application. So we're gonna have you come back tomorrow, and you'll do the application and this and that. So did application. They had me do a drug test, passed that, and so that was on a Sun. So interviewed on Sunday, came back, did the application on Monday, did the drug test on like Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember. But I was doing orientation by Thursday. So like it was like less than a week, like I had a job. Um so shout out my uncle for, putting in a good word. I do appreciate that. But yeah, got back working and started to, you know, recuperate and start making money and just got back to a place where I was like, all right, I'm good. And then it just got to a point where I was like, man, I think it's about that time. And parents talked to me about it and they was like, man, it's probably time for you to move out. And I was like, yeah, I think so too. So I would say that was hard because at the time, I felt a little bit like I was being kicked out, but it wasn't because of they didn't love me or they didn't care. It was just like some decisions I was making prior to that, like me getting fired and all this other stuff. Some decisions that was being made that wasn't good decisions. So I gotta live with those decisions. But just started looking for apartments and decided on this one and that's where we are. But through that time, I would say I was dealing with like like it was like a bad. I wouldn't say a bad, but I was definitely dealing with depression because it was like, man, like I feel useless. Like I'm not working. School's not really going how I thought it was gonna go, and I'm probably a failure because I'm 25. You're supposed to have my degree, don't have it, but I'm just like, man, it's like, bro, I'm not working, barely able to pay the bills that I do have at the time, and then it's like, man, do my parents, today, am I a failure? Like, am I letting people down? Like, it's just like, bro, like I don't know what to do. So it's just like, man, I was really in a dark place because I was just like, man, in it, even though like I was going to the gym, I was hanging out with my homies and stuff. It was just like, man, it's just like, I don't know if I'm putting on a mask or something like that, but it was like, bro, like this is a tough time, bro. Like one thing I will say, like prayer does work, you know what I'm saying? It's being consistent, but it was like, man, I was still like doubting myself. Like I had that doubt, like, man, no, man. It's like, man, I'm not working. I can't make no money. What if I'm trying to talk to a chick? Like, it's just a lot of stuff was going through my head. And one thing I would say, I really don't want to do this, bring the person to bring it up. I'm not going to mention her name. But, it was a young lady that I knew from high school. We had some history with each other and we reconnected. And, she would always motivate me, tell me like, hey, I'm praying for you. And she'll send me like prayers she'll have for me, and she'll say, you got it, you got it. And that stuck with me. I'm like, man, like that's a real one because like I didn't have no money or I was not getting no money. I was down. I feel like I failed my parents. I didn't. I'm a failure to myself. Like it's just like a lot of stuff going on. So she was a bright spot. She had stuff going on in her life too, but it was like one of those things where when I had conversations with her when we would text, it felt, it was different. Like, she was uplifting. She never tried to tear me down or make me seem like I was worthless or, less than I was. It's like, it was always like whenever I hung out with her or whenever we talked or text, like, it was always, a good time. But it's like a saying, all good things must come to an end. And, we tried the relationship thing. She has a kid. I don't have kids, obviously. But, it didn't really work out. Some stuff happened, and we did end things on bad terms. Um, it actually wasn't too long ago. I'm speaking about it because this is what I want to do. But you know, I didn't want to because I've known her for probably since I was 17, so 8 years, and we just tried actually getting into dating back last August. So, but obviously it didn't work out. But I do wish her the best, and it's a lot of other stuff I can say, but I'm not gonna get into all that on here because that's going too far. But yeah, it's just a lot that went into it. I'm not gonna speak bad about it. I feel like I feel like I know my side of the story was just I just couldn't win. I'm gonna just say that, man. I just couldn't win. So in any circumstance, I couldn't win. So it was a lose lose. However you slice it, however you want to point at it. So and it was a kid involved on her end. So I mean, she gonna do what she gotta do. So not knocking that at all, but it just didn't work out for me. So I had to, we had to end things. Might not have been on the best to know. Who knows? We might reconnect or something. I don't know, but right now that's just not something. I feel like for the last 10 months, almost 9, 10 months, whatever you want to call it, it's just a lot of different factors that was pulling, and we couldn't really work on improving and growing with each other. So it was just like it's not gonna work out. Her situation is not changing, my situation is not changing. So it's like we trying to change, and all this stuff, and it's not working. We're trying to make it seem like stuff is going good when it's not, and make it seem like things are getting better when they're getting worse. So just my advice to all the young people out there. Um, if it ain't working, or you feel like you always in a bind, or it's always some drama going on, man, just like I would just say, like, protect your peace, man. It took me a while. It took me a while. I'm not gonna lie. I was hard headed about it, but everybody telling me, man, you gotta leave, man. You need to leave. You need to leave. But I didn't listen. I thought stuff was gonna get better by me and her just working it out. But it's nah. So at the end of the day, you gotta do what's best for you. So has this mic been on the whole time without the? Hold on. Okay, I thought I was tripping. But yeah, it's just I don't know, man. It's just a lot of factors, man. I hated to do it, but it had to be done because, man, you can see the good in people, but they gotta see it in themselves, and you can't. You can only do so much for somebody before it's just like, I mean, So I hated to do it, but I don't know why. But relationships, and just from like me from when I started, you know, dating, because I had my first. Well, I mean, yeah, my first real girlfriend was in ninth grade, and then from there, it's just like I won't say necessarily dating was downhill, but it's like I always ended up, you know, it's like one of those situations where like the girl you wanted to be with ended up with somebody else, or she might have had a kid, or this and that, or she might have had a family, and not necessarily saying I'm a take a step back on that one, because the chicks I ended up with wasn't bad, but it's just like I just wasn't, the energy wasn't reciprocated. And I feel like that's how it's been, like every relationship I've been in. It's like the energy's not being reciprocated. I'm making all these changes. I'm doing all this and that. But I don't really see nothing being done, for me. So it's just like, man, all them young people out there, male, female, whatever, learn how to communicate. I'm not just talking about talking. I'm talking about like learn how to. Well, yeah, I am talking about talk. Like just learn how to use your words. Learn how to enunciate. Learn how to speak. Learn how to say how you feel. Don't just expect somebody to know what you're thinking. Like that takes time. Like I could see your face and be like, "Oh, you're happy," and then you start talking and then you're pissed off. So, just learn how to communicate, learn how to be accountable, learn how to hold each other accountable, learn how to hold each other to a standard of what you want in a partner. And if that person can't meet, and we got to have realistic standards, people. And I said I wasn't going to talk about this on the podcast, but I feel like it got to be talked about, not just with relationships, but in life. Like, you got to hold people to standards, and it ain't got to be no outrageous, crazy standards. Like, I might meet the criteria for some chicks, like, oh, I'm over 6 feet, I'm, tall, dark, and blah blah blah, whatever. I don't make a lot of money, so I don't make money doing this right now, at least right now. But we're gonna be making money pretty soon. But you just gotta have realistic standards. Not every dude in the world is gonna be over 6 feet. Not every dude in the world is gonna be athletic. Not every dude in the world is gonna be X, Y, and Z. Not every dude is gonna be the best looking dude. So you gotta set realistic expectations and look at yourself in the mirror. And the same for dudes too. Not every chick is gonna be the baddest. Not every chick is gonna have the biggest butt or you know be the smartest. Like just different stuff. I'm not trying to say you gotta settle, but you gotta have realistic. You gotta have realistic standards for people. And I just think right now, and I'll speak this into existence. Like right now, it's just not a good time for me to be dating at all. And people have told me this a lot. I didn't listen because I'm like, nah, things would be different. I already be like, oh, it'll be different. No, nah. So yeah, as of right now, not really doing the dating thing. Not really. Obviously, you hang out with chicks and stuff like that. But as far as dating, to be in a relationship and stuff like that, not really. It's not really something I'm trying to do. Just because it ain't worked out. Like I can go down the list. Like every relationship I've been in, it's just been terrible. So it is what it is. You live and you learn. But you know, I can say I'm glad that I'm a single black male, no children. I have my own place to stay. I have my own transportation. I work. So but I still have a lot more that I can accomplish, that I know I can accomplish, that I am going to accomplish. But I'm still I can't even talk right now. I've instilled that confidence in myself. Like I know when I'm, not to be like cliche or like be one of those dudes. Like I know what I bring to the table, and I know my value. I know my worth. So it's just one of those things where I'm not going to force the situation. If it's not working out, it's not working out. So it's got to go with the flow. And if God brings a woman into my life that's like, man, this is the one. It's like, you know, I'll know. I'll definitely know at that point. Because if you're at a point where you're just like, man, I don't know about this girl. It's like, cause you're gonna know. You're gonna know for sure if she's the one. If you don't know, or if you get second guessing, she's not the one, man. I'm just be honest with you. And people have told me that, and I'm like, you right, but I'm gonna, in the back of my head, I'm like, but I'm gonna figure it out. We gonna figure it out. Nah, if people telling you the same stuff that you asking yourself, it's probably true. Yeah. So like I said, not to speak bad about her, but it is what it is. We just didn't work out. But um, other than that, let's switch. Yeah, let's switch gears and let's go into the gym situation. So when I first stopped working, when I first lost my job, I was in the gym every week. I was probably in the gym maybe 3-4 times a week, and I was doing that maybe for like I'm trying to figure out. I was doing that for a little while, and then when I got to the point where I started my new job, it turned into maybe like 2, maybe 3 times a week, and then it turned into no times a week because around the time I started working my new job, I also was in the process of moving into my apartment. So it was like I just couldn't really find that much time because like I gotta get stuff moved in, I gotta figure out X, Y, and Z, I gotta just a lot going on, and I won't say I have time for the gym, but I just didn't really have time for the gym. So I would say maybe like about a month or so ago, a little bit over a month. I would say about since the end of or beginning of May, I should say, is when I started um getting back into the gym seriously. I try to go at least 3 to 4 times a week, and I just started lifting again. So I haven't like actually lifted weights since probably like 2021, or I don't know. It's been a minute, but and even then I wasn't really like lifting weights. It was just like sometimes we would go lift weights, other times we would just do our calisthenic workouts because that's mostly what I do is calisthenics. But I was like, man, let me start lifting weights. So getting back into lifting weights, and then I hoop about the same. So when I lift, I try to lift and hoop. So yeah, lift first and then go hoop. So been doing that. Well, I just started lifting and then hooping. We did that last. No, we did that on Sunday. So we did that on Sunday, and then I've been going to the gym hooping 3 4 times a week since last month. So been doing that more consistently. And then I'm just starting to implement lifting, getting workouts and stuff in. Um, before I go hoop, every time, but that's a new I'll say it's a new journey. It's it helps with my schedule. I try to map things out. And get my schedule online and stuff like that. I did start going to the chiropractor maybe like a month and a half ago, so that's been a good experience. Chiropractor I highly recommend because I was on the fence about it at first. I was like, I don't know, is it really gonna work? But the pain that I've been having in certain areas, it's definitely improved, and just tell me to ice, and do other things to help improve it to a point to where there's minimal to no pain. So yeah, I highly recommend the chiropractor. So just go, listen to what they have to say, talk to them, tell them what's going on, and if you feel like you don't need the chiropractor, that's fine. I'm not saying it, but if you feel like it's a possibility you could go to the chiropractor, just do it. Make sure you use your insurance because your insurance, if you have depending on if they accept your insurance, your insurance could pay a good portion of it. So that's helped me out a lot. Cause as far as when I go to the gym, obviously I do stretches and stuff like that to stay loose, so I'm not as sore or I'm not as tight, when I'm working out, or just like when I'm, when I get home, just not as you know stiff. Because sometimes I do walk around at work. Sometimes I'll just sit in the office, but it just depends. But I just want to be able to, if I have to, you know, run at any point, not just at the gym or anything like that, but just if I have to run or use some energy, I'll be able to do that with not having to feel like I'm breaking my bones or I'm stiff or like my muscles are tight. So I've been on that. So we're starting to me and my two of my brothers. They're not my brothers, but um, they are by blood. At least they're not my. We're not blood related, but they're my brothers. We started a gym routine, so we all go in the mornings, which works. So like I said, I work late, so that's pretty good. But that's just I'm trying to stay consistent with that, and it just helps get my mind off of it. Um, Tip for the fellas, working out, being in the gym is good for testosterone. I'm just saying, just saying. Somebody had to say it, but I had to say it. So sorry about that. But yes, I mean it's good for testosterone. It's a lot of it's good for a lot of things, But anyway, yeah, just trying to get back into being consistent in the gym and just especially doing it with basketball. I have such a huge love for basketball. So I mean, it was a no brainer, just to implement and start getting back into that. But I'm trying to think if anything else. I really want to look into maybe possibly becoming a personal trainer because I just feel like I'll be one of those people that's like, man, I've been where you been at. So I've been depressed. I haven't I've doubted myself. It's like explain like obviously I haven't. Everybody has a different story, a different journey, but I feel like I would be one of those people that's like, nah, we ain't giving up. Like, what you doing? Like, it's like one of those things where like, nah, we keep going. You push through, you persevere, you overcome. So I feel like that would be perfect because it's like you doing something you love, which I love working out, and then on top of that, you impacting people's lives. You helping them make a difference. So that's something I want to look into and probably possibly maybe become a chiropractor. I don't know. But that's just one of those things like it's just like so much stuff that I want to do, but it's like I just got to figure out what I love to do and what I enjoy doing. So that's really I just got to hone in on that and figure it out cuz it's coming soon. I'm starting to put pieces together on stuff that I'm looking to get into after I finish school. But yeah. So, and speaking of school, not in school right now, but that's for obvious reasons. I lost my job. Had to regain my job, and then going through that process, and then moving. So I had to take a break from school to make sure everything was in order. But hopefully this August I'll be enrolling back in school. If not August, then probably when winter break ends. So like December, January, somewhere around there. So between August and December, January is when I'll be, getting back into school, getting things back rolling with that. But this time is gonna be my whole regimen is gonna have to change. Like I'm not gonna be taking classes online. I'm probably gonna go back to doing in person, but a lot of things is gonna change as far as my routine. Taking tutoring and stuff like that because as far as school, and I can say this, my methods with school have not worked. Whatever I've been doing has not been working, so I got to find a different way to implement school and figure out how to you know just have a routine and something that works, something that's gonna help me get good grades, pass my exams, tests, all that stuff. Any extra credit I'm gonna need it. So just any little thing I can do to improve with school. I hate to say it, I'm one of those people that like to procrastinate, and I hate that I do it with school because it's stupid. But I just once I actually hone in and figure out, okay, this one I need to do, this one, and then things become a lot easier. But I'm not gonna make any excuses. I have been lackadaisical for X amount of years since I've been out of high school. So I'm looking at the time as now is it's now or never. So if if I don't get it done now, I'm gonna get it done. Ain't no if. So I'm gonna get it done. So I'm gonna walk across that stage. I don't know when exactly. So that's what I need to figure out and what I need to set and hone in on and just be steadfast, put my head down, and weed out all the distractions that I don't need and just focus on that and just get through it. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be nights I'm not gonna want to do it, which is probably gonna be every night. But because I'm not really a big school guy, but not as far as like not liking school. I never really had like too many problems in school, but I just don't like all the extra work, I should say, that I have to do. But you got to do things you need to do in order to do the things you want. So I'm not doing a lot of things that I want to do right now. So you know, other than have my own space, but it's a lot more that I want to do that I can't do because I need to do the stuff that I need to do first. So just focusing on that. But it's definitely gonna be a big reality check if life hasn't already been a reality check for me. So that's something I'm gonna really take pride in and not take for granted because I've taken school for granted for a long time, and it's not something I should have been doing. But you live and you learn, and you just go from there. So that's all I can really say about that. Just got to put the words into action, and y'all gonna see the progress pretty soon. But switching gears into some sports, I gotta bring up sports, man. I got on this hoodie, but I need to get a this is Michigan State, by the way, but I need to get a one of these jackets in an OKC form because I don't know if y'all have seen, but obviously The finals is on right now. The Thunder and the Pacers are in the finals. I just played game. Well, when this episode is being filmed, I don't know when it's gonna be released, but they just played game 5 at NBA Finals in OKC. Final score is 120 to 109 in favor of OKC. If you know who I am, if you know me for real, you know I'm a diehard OKC fan for sure. So it's a big win for the Thunder. They took a series lead 3-2. I feel like before the series started, I should say, I feel like, oh, the OKC probably gonna run away with it. But then after game 1, Halliburton hit that game winner. I was like, ah. But then we responded in game 2. We got a double-digit win, and then game 3 they responded again. Indiana did, and they took game 3. Halliburton had a great game. I don't know what his stats was exactly, but he had a great game. And then game 4, SGA responded. And he got us the dub on the road. We needed that because they took one in OKC, so we had to take one in Indiana. So came back home, game 5, J Dub, masterclass. I don't even know what to say. Jalen Williams, 40 ball, yeah, 40 points. Shea had 31 points, 10 assists. So they did what they had to do, and role guys stepped up, glue guys stepped up, and I got the dub. So hopefully, as much as I hate to say it, I would I wouldn't be mad if Indiana won the next game because that would set up a game 7, and that would mean that we got a chance to win the finals in OKC. And I already told my two closest friends that I watch basketball with, and they're also Thunder fans. I'm like, bro, we're going to the parade. Like, I'm going. So it's like I told my sister that like not too long ago we were texting. I'm going to the parade. So yeah, if OKC wins, when OKC wins, I'm going to the parade. So I don't care if I work. I don't care what's going on. I'm going to the parade. So and it's in Oklahoma City, which is like 2.5, 3 hours from here, which is not that far. So yeah, I'm going regardless of what's going on that day. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there. But it's been an exciting series, ups and downs for sure. So I don't know how it's gonna go. I know it's gonna be because Game 6 is gonna be in Indiana. So it's gonna be rocking. It's definitely gonna be. It's gonna be a tough environment. If we do win, I won't be mad about that. It's NBA champions. So that's something KD and Westbrook couldn't. KD and Russ they couldn't bring a championship to OKC. That's the sad truth. But that'd be the first championship that the Thunder have. Obviously the Sonics have one, but I don't really count that. I don't. I don't know. I feel like that's just a completely different franchise. But yeah. So I mean, if we do win Game 6, I'll definitely be happy for sure. Either way, I'm going to the parade, but it would be cool if they did it on their home court. So, but either way it go, I'm gonna be happy. OKC NBA champions. I'm getting all the NBA gear, or not NBA, but I'm getting all the championship gear. I'm getting the hoodie, jacket, shirt, whatever, whatever I can get. So, hey, can only hope for the best. So, OKC, like yeah, you know what it is. But it's been exciting. I hate for it to end because I mean we still got WNBA, but it's just a different vibe. It's just a different energy about the NBA. And when it ends, it's just like you got baseball and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's just a difference because I'm obviously not a big baseball fan. I like baseball, but as big as I am on basketball and stuff like that. So but it's just man. It's a lot of uncertainties, but that's what sports is about. It's about you know the expected and the unexpected. So you can't really speak too much on that. All right, sorry about that. Um, had a brief intermission, but it is just a lot of uncertainties in the NBA, man. Just in sports in general. So can't really, you gotta expect the unexpected. Not just in sports, but in life too. But that's what we all have for the NBA. It's not really a lot. Obviously watching the series. Shay's playing out of his mind. Halliburton is up and down. You know, other guys like Jalen Williams, Chet. Ryan M. Hard, Neek Smith. Those guys, they're up and down. But people saying Shay's a free throw merchant, whatever. If you actually watch basketball, and see, he does foul bait sometimes, just a little bit, but he don't do it all the time. So but that's how people, they're whatever they're gonna say, whatever. So it's just whatever. Let them have their arguments. Oh, he's a free throw merchant. All right, bro, whatever. You don't know ball, but that's all I really got for basketball. But hopefully OKC can close it out and be NBA champions, because that's it's been my dream since I've been watching basketball for the most part, and since I've been able to. I wouldn't say since I've been watching basketball. Since I've been able to root for a team, I would just love for my team to win, because I've already seen the New England Patriots win multiple championships. I've never seen the Thunder win a championship, and it would be even better because I can go to the parade. I'm not going to the parade in Boston. What? What? Okay, see, 3 hours away. Like I'm going to the parade. Like I can say I went to the championship parade when the Thunder won the championship. I can take pictures, videos, all that stuff. Might get autographed. Who knows? So that's something you can tell your kids, grandkids. That's something that's never gonna go away. That 50 years, 100 years from now, OKC NBA champions 2025. Like that's you can't take that away. So I feel like that'd just be a great ending to the season. I feel like, but we'll see. We'll see. But other than that, I'm gonna move into just my goals for the end of the year. Affirmations. Manifest and stuff. And so I don't really have a lot of goals for the end of the year, just because of what my situation is right now. I don't really have a lot of you know flexibility to do certain things that I want to do. But I would say one of the goals and affirmations that I have is getting my passport, so I can travel, leave the country. Been talking to my sister about going to like Jamaica, possibly like Mexico or something, like just getting out the country, just experiencing life outside of the U.S. Just seeing the world, because there's so much outside of Kansas. Like it's just so much outside of the United States, like that you haven't seen. Like it's just different cultures and how people live, and how people move. It's just everything is different. So don't get me wrong, I do enjoy Kansas. When I go to Texas, I've been to Maryland before, Oklahoma, stuff like that. But it's just like you kind of once you kind of get acclimated to how things are, it's like, man, this is kind of the same as how like it is at home. So I just want to see like different cultures. you know so getting my passport is definitely gonna be one of the things that I want to get done by the end of the year. Hopefully I get done within the next couple months, and I can say I went to Jamaica, or I went to Europe or something like that, or I went to Mexico, Canada, whatever. So just say I left the country, Japan or something like that. Did something exciting and out of my shell. So that's definitely coming for sure. Getting my passport is definitely coming. Um, Another goal I have for the end of the year. I'm really trying to think, because I'm not really like a big, you know, not really a big. I don't really try to set like huge goals, or like goals that I don't feel like I can accomplish like in a certain amount of time. I hope at least by the end of the year, with the podcast, just growing it. I hope I can at least have on YouTube because I only got like 20. I might check my YouTube right now because I don't know how many subscribers I have. I don't have a lot though, but I have. Okay, still loading. Sorry, I have 25 subscribers right now on YouTube. So if I can get to 50 by the end of the year, that would be. Cause I'm not really. I'm realistic. Like I'm like, all right, bro, we're gonna try to get to 50 by the end of the year, and then by the end of next year, I want to be at 100. So hopefully we can get to that. But just getting my followers up. Being more consistent, not just with working out, being in the gym. Focusing on myself, improving myself. You know, getting things better as far as schooling. But just being more consistent with, just the podcast, just working on the podcast, editing, taking time to actually sit down, improving, looking at what I did wrong, looking at what I could have did better, hopefully getting more. It would be awesome to get some sponsorships, just get free gear, people have me trying stuff, I would love to do that. So anybody that watches this, if you know somebody that's, has a brand or, is advertising something, or whatever, if they need, or if somebody's marketing something, if they need some advertisement, reach out, please. You don't got to pay me. If you want to, we can talk, but just as long as you give me free gear. If you make me pay for it and I got to advertise, I'm not doing that. So, but, or we can just work something out. I'm not gonna say it, but we can work something out. But we can work something out. But just go on that. Actually having like, special guests on, I know my little brother, he's gonna probably want to come back on at some point. Just try to get other people, close friends I have. I'm not at a point nowhere near where I'm have celebrities on here, but maybe one day, I'm not gonna rule it out, but not by the end of the year, no. But yeah, definitely get some guests on here, and I'm gonna try to start promoting more too. So like if you know somebody that's like an artist, or does music, or they got a small bit, or different stuff like that, just more so locally, just to get just to help people get notoriety, or not notoriety, but just help people get noticed. So yeah, because it's one of those things where I just want to be one of those people that's wants to I'm not one of those people that just want to gatekeep. I want to see everybody win. So if I can use my platform, I don't have a big platform, but if I can get a video that reached somebody in California or something like that, like, oh, they not, like, it's not, or Texas, I don't know, my video might reach somebody random and they'd be like, oh, I know this producer or something like that, so you never know. But I would definitely want to do that. And not only just that, but I would say just the youth, like, just working with the youth. And hopefully, because I was talking to one of my brothers the other day, or not the other day, but just like a few months ago, and we just talked about just like just coaching youth basketball, being trainers and different stuff, like just doing different stuff with the youth, just empowering the youth, just being that positive influence, because I've definitely had a lot of positive influence in my life throughout my youth, but I want to be that for the next generation. Cause it's a lot of it's kids out there that grow up, they don't have a father figure, they don't have their moms and stuff like that around, but and that's tough. So that you just be a positive figure for somebody that help make a difference. And you can, not necessarily, because I saw this quote the other day and it said, I give you advice not because I know more than you, but because I know that I failed more. And when I saw that, I was like, dang. Because like when you think about it, it's like it's not necessarily, because you could be really smart and then you see like your parents are not really, you know, in tune like with certain stuff. But then you think about it, it's like, well, they have made more mistakes, they have been through more, so they would know. I mean, I wouldn't say I hate to say it, but because you feel like at a certain point, like you know everything, like you know what to do, but then your parents are like, nah, you probably shouldn't do that, or you probably do this, you probably do that, because they know how, they've been in your situation before, so it's just giving advice on, all right, I went through this, this is what I did, I don't want you to do this because I tried this didn't work for me, so it's not gonna work for you because I know. So like I said, everybody's experience is different, but if you give them that, just give the youth that advice, like, hey, I tried this didn't work, you know, just try to not necessarily tear them down, but try to, just prepare them, like, hey, this is possibly gonna happen, this is how you handle it, X, Y, and Z. Because I feel like now with a lot of the youth is like they try to grow up too fast, and it's like, nah, you don't want to do that. And I might have brought this up in a previous episode too. I really was like, I was 8 or 9, like, man, I can't wait to be grown. Now I'm just like, let me go back to being 8 or 9. Let me go back to when I was in kindergarten and they had the little nap time. Let me go back to that, man. Let me go back to that because then you didn't have no responsibilities, no bills. All you could do was just enjoy being a kid. You watch your little morning cartoons, eat your cereal, and life was good. But now I can't even tell you the last time I watched a cartoon. I can't even tell you the last time I ate cereal. So yeah, it's a lot of adulting, and adulting is very, very ghetto. I don't like the shit. I don't. But you just gotta do. So, and this is why I think this is a pivotal moment in my life because I do want to have kids at some point. Hopefully around the time I'm 30. So, that's why I say it's now or never with me trying to figure out life and stuff. Because if I haven't figured out everything that I want to, I mean, obviously you're not gonna figure out life completely by the time you're 30, duh. But you're at least gonna have that blueprint of like, okay, I've done this, I've done this. Okay, now we can start. So I just want to be able to get to a point or get to a place where I'm. I want to get to a place where if I do have a kid, oh, I'm good. If I'm wanting to have a kid and I don't, all right, I'm good. So, and that also ties into because with I'm a family oriented guy, so me having a kid is also going to tie into me finding the right woman. So yeah, but I got a lot of time for that, so that's why I said, but she also has to, be on the same path. She has to have goals. She has to be at a certain point in her life. So it's a lot of factors. So, but I do need to work on myself and make sure I'm in the best position that I can be, so that when I do find a partner, when I do want to start a family, I have everything that I need. Hopefully they have everything that they need to come together and combine and grow, mature um, together, and hopefully spend the rest of our lives together. So we're gonna see, but I'm still manifesting, still praying. I still find, I can find the right one someday, so I can start a family and pass on the mistakes that I made and the knowledge and the tools, and say, hey, say that to my kids and my grandkids and stuff like that, so I can help them to get away from the habits that I developed or the bad habits that I developed and the bad decisions that I made. Like, if you do this, just know this is gonna happen. So, because everybody's gonna experience life. Everybody, at the end of the day, people are gonna do what they want to do. But if you, try to keep, your kids and stuff like that on the straight and narrow, you try to keep them out of trouble. You try to make sure, they make good grades in school and stuff like that. From that point, all you can do is observe. Just be there for them as much as possible. But I just want to be able to, you know, instill that hope and that confidence and that just that yeah, just hope and confidence. And I'm trying to think of another word, but I can't think of it right now. But just instilling that into the next generation so they can, have the brains, have the confidence, have the awareness to, to know that anything that they do, that's positive in this world, that's good, that's gonna make a difference in this world, is gonna be, it's gonna be life changing. So that's just really all I wanna say as far as, affirmations goes for whatnot. Affirmations goes for it. But as far as goes for the end of the year, just hopefully, it's impacting the youth as much as I can. Because you can impact the youth at any point, really, even when you're a youth. So, it's impacting the youth, keeping it real. Um, growing my fan base, most likely. I don't know if I can say I have fans. But, hopefully getting to 50 subscribers by the end of the year. I know that's not a lot, but hey, I'm not really a big, I try to set like realistic kind of goals. So, stuff like that. And then, hopefully I'm in a good position with school and, just being consistent in the gym. Hopefully I have more progress and stuff like that to keep y'all up with. But also, I just want to get bigger. I'm like 190. I'm like 193 right now. So hopefully I can get to 200. I'm just like really just like on the edge of hitting 200. The highest I've gotten to is 195. So I know if I start, getting into a good regimen with the gym, I'll be at 200 probably for sure at the end of the year. So we're gonna see. But as far as affirmations, manifestations, just putting my best foot forward. Making the most of every day, and believing in myself, having confidence in myself. Not putting myself down. Not talking down on myself. Not trying to put myself in situations that's gonna affect me negatively. Not trying to surround myself with negative people, negative vibes, negative energy. Like just, praying to God that He takes any of those essences, or not essences, but any of those in existence in my life away from me. Any negative people, negative vibes, negative energy, anything that's going to tear me down or pull me down or hold me back from, you know, what He has in store for me. Just, just take that away from my life. And, just help me, just not to, just steer me away from temptation. Obviously, I have been a, person that's just like, I get sucked into temptation. I'm just be honest, I've gotten sucked into temptation, but it's like, you gotta, for example, like you see a fine girl, like, dang, she bad, but it's like, that's just on the outside. What is she like, on the inside, stuff like that. So, because I've known, I know, I won't say I've known, I know a lot of women that look good, but they're bad people. I know a lot of women that don't look the best, but they're, great people. And I know a lot of women that are ugly people. So, it's just like, you just never know. And I know a lot of women that look good that are great people. So, it's just never, the outside is cool, it's fine. Obviously, who doesn't love somebody that looks good, but, you got to find out what's on the inside, what their intentions are, how they operate, and yeah, you got to go from there. So, yeah, that's one thing I got to get away from is just the looks. Looks are not everything. So, I mean, yeah, you obviously want to be with somebody that's attractive, but you also want to be with somebody that's compatible with you, that you can communicate with, that you can talk to, different stuff like that. I can go on with, but anyway, just getting away from temptation. Just becoming more of a reader. I have started reading a book. I haven't finished the chapter yet. Excuse me, but I'm trying. But I read out loud now, so I'm able to keep up more and focus more. Because if I read like in my head, I'll lose track, and then my attention span is not the best when I read in my head. But just working on that, and just making a promise to myself, like, man, do not get in a relationship or do not get involved with a chick if you are not sure. Like, if I'm not sure, like, I don't know if this is gonna work out. Don't do it, man. Just leave her alone. So, just becoming the best version of myself, not focusing on, what I can do to change or make somebody else's life easier. What I can do to make my life easier. So that's what I need to focus on. But I don't have much else to say, but other than, anybody watching this, reaching out, tuning in, whether you on YouTube, Apple, whatever if you're watching it, listening to it, I said this before and I'll say it again. Appreciate you. Thank you for taking time out of your day, your night, whether you was cleaning, listening to this on your way to work, on your way to the store, wherever, or you just at home, chilling, just listening to it. Thank you. I appreciate you. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Get this out to as many people as you need to, or as you can, not as you need to. But I'm trying to grow in this platform. I'm trying to expand. So I'm gonna start getting more consistent. I'm start holding myself accountable. I'm hoping to have this edited by the end of the week so I can put it out maybe Friday or Saturday. So, who knows? And I'm gonna try to film at least 1 or 2 episodes a week so I can just be putting out stuff weekly. But again, I appreciate any and everybody watching this, taking time out of whatever you're doing to tap in with me. And again, this is Lamont's Life. I look a little different. I don't know if you all know. The hair got a little bit longer. It needs to get done. I need to get it done. I ain't got to retwist in a few months, but it needs to get done. So, but yeah, the hair got longer. I got a little bit of facial hair. It's not. I need to manifest that too. Hopefully, I can get some more facial hair. But man, I appreciate y'all. Thank you. It's been a lot's happened in this past 10 months. So obviously I could write a book for real about everything that's going on. But thank you everybody that supports me, and if you don't support me, thank you for that too, because it motivates me. But again, thank you. I appreciate you, and till next time, peace.
DA Joy in your speakers.